This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is our final shiur before Purim. We're going to examine some interesting aspects of the Megillah, of the Yom Tov of Purim, and perhaps delve a little bit further into a topic that we've discussed before. If we look at the Megillah, we'll notice right away that the Megillah begins with the letter Vav. Begins with the letter Vav, Vayehi. Interesting. If you look at the end of the Megillah, what does it say? V'doiver shalom l'chol zaroi. It ends with the letter Vav. So Megillah begins with the Vav, and it ends with the Vav. So we have to try to explain what the reasoning of this is. So, how are you, Yitzhak? Have a seat. The Megillah begins with the letter Vav and ends with the letter Vav. We try to explain why is that. Why does the Megillah begin and end with the letter Vav? Okay, sounds like an interesting point. Now, if you look at the end of the Megillah, all the way in Parak Yud, we talk about an individual, the king of the world. His name was Achashverosh. And if you look in Parak Yud, Pasuk Aleph, which is the first Maramakum on the sheet, the Pasuk says, Vayasam HaMelech Achashverosh Mas Ala Oretz V'iyeh Hayam. That the king Achashverosh made a tax on the earth, on the land, and the islands. Now look at the word Achashverosh. It's normally Achashverosh is spelled Aleph, Ches, Shin, Vav, Reish, Vav, Shin. Achashverosh's name is normally spelled with two Vavs, and in this instance, he lost both of his Vavs. It's spelled Aleph, Ches, Shin, Reish, Shin. So while the Megillah begins with the Vav, ends with the Vav, and Achashverosh, normally his name has two Vavs, what happened here? The last time the Megillah says the name Achashverosh, he loses his two Vavs. He loses his two Vavs. Okay? So those are two questions we're going to try to delve into. Okay? Question number one is, the Megillah begins with the Ois Vav, Vayehi. It ends with the Ois Vav, L'chol Zaroi. Okay? We want to know why is that. Okay? Why does the Megillah begin with a Vav and end with a Vav? And then at the end of the Megillah, Achashverosh, his name, he loses two of his Vavs. Goodbye. What happened to them? Why? Why did he lose? Nobody likes to lose a letter in their name, right? You wouldn't want to lose a letter in your name. What happened? Why did Achashverosh lose two of his Vavs? Okay. Now we have another thing. Now, where does the name Achashverosh come from? What does the word Achashverosh mean? What kind of name is that? You know, imagine you have a baby, you call it V'yikar Shemai B'Yisrael Achashverosh. What kind of name is Achashverosh? Who in their right mind would name their kid Achashverosh? So the Gemara tells us actually the name Achashverosh has a very deep meaning. What's the meaning? If you look at number 2, the Gemara says in Megillah, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan said, Kol shezochro. Anyone who would think about the name, anyone who would think about this guy, Amar, he would say, Ach l'rosho. Woe to his head. Woe to his head. Meaning to Achashverosh's head. He would curse him. He would say, Ach, in Yiddish is an expression, Ach and Vei, yeah? What does Ach and Vei mean? Ach, Achi, right? Achi, in English also, right? Ach, disgusting. Ach, woe, woe, woe to his head. They would say, woe to the head of Achashverosh. Why woe to his head? Why not woe to his foot? Why not woe to his stomach? Why dafka to his head? What do we have against Achashverosh's head? What, he had an ugly head? Why don't we like his head? Okay. Now, we're going to look at another item. In Parshas Emor, in Sefer Vayikra, Parshas Emor, take a look in your Chumashim. It's on page 682. 682. You have a Chumash, page 682. The Torah tells us about all the holidays. Page 682. For it says, Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lemar, Daber al Bnei Yisrael v'yamarta aleim Moadei Hashem. It talks about all the various holidays. At first it talks about Pesach. Then it goes on to talk about on 684, Sfiras HaOmer, and then Shavuos. And then on page 686 it talks about Rosh Hashanah. Then it talks about Yom Kippur. Then it talks about Sukkot. fine. These are all the holidays that are min HaTorah that are biblical. Okay? Now, obviously, the Torah is not going to specifically talk about Chanukah and Purim, because Chanukah and Purim are not min HaTorah, they're not midoraisa, they're midrabanan. And yet, the Rokeach is one of the great Rishonim, Rabbi Lezer Migarmaiza. Rabbi Lezer Migarmaiza was born in 1160. 1160. He passed away in 1238. Okay, he's one of the great Rishonim who was able to find many of the hints of the Torah, many of the secrets of the Torah. Rabbi Lezer Migarmaiza is able to derive. He had a tradition, very interesting. Rabbi Lezer Migarmaiza had a tradition from his father and from his Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, dating back to the Tanoim, the sages of the Mishnah, of exactly how many words there are in each part of the Tfilos, and why each. In other words, Baruch She'amar has 87 words. Why it has 87 words? What's the significance of that? He had a tradition for every part of the davening, how many words there are, and the significance of why there's this amount of words. And very interesting, he lived in the 12th century, 13th century, during the time of the Crusades. And actually the Crusaders entered his house, murdered his wife and his 2 daughters in front of his eyes. They injured him, they injured his son, but they both escaped. So Rokeach says that right after the Parsha of the Moadim, what do we have? Look on page 690, Pasuk Aleph, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Lemar, Tzaves B'nei Yisrael, command the B'nei Yisrael, V'yikchu Eilecha, they should take for themselves Shemen Zayezach, pure olive oil. This is a hint to which holiday? Which Yom Tiv? Chanukah. Right after all of the Yomim Tovim, it says take pure olive oil. That's a hint to Chanukah. Says the Rokeach, look in Pasuk Hey, V'lakachta soles, take fine flour. V'afisa osa, bake it. Shtei mesrei chalos, to 12 loaves. Shnei fine. This is the mitzvah of the lechem hapanim. Lechem hapanim was in the Mishkan, in the Beis Hamikdash, there was a shulchan, a table. On the table, they piled up 12 big loaves of bread. And this, says Rokeach, is a remez to which holiday? Purim. Purim. How is this a remez to Purim? How is this a hint to Purim? The simple meaning is, what do we do on Purim? We eat. We have a Seuda. We have a Seuda. So if this next part of the Torah speaks about a table and loaves of bread, it's somewhat of a hint to Seuda, to Purim. However, we're going to try to find a deeper meaning. What is the connection between the Shulchan and the Beis HaMikdash, the table and the Beis HaMikdash, with these breads and Purim? By the way, if you want to know what this looked like, what the Shulchan looked like, if you look in the Chumash, in Parshas Truma, on page 449, on page 449, you have a picture of the Shulchan with the lechem hapanim, with the showbread. Okay, but anyway, what we're learning over here is that right in the Parsha of the Moadim, where the Torah talks about all of the holidays which are min HaTorah, that are from the Torah, you have a hint to Chanukah, then you have a hint to Purim, and Rabbi Glatstein, very interesting, if you look right after this, on page 692, what do you have? You have the episode of the Mekalel, the one who cursed Hashem. This is also a hint to Purim, because on Purim, you have to curse Haman. Arur Haman. So interesting, right after the episode, right after the topic of the Shulchan with the Lechem HaPanim, you have the story of the Jew who went out and cursed Hashem. That's also a hint of Purim, because on Purim we say what? We say Arur Haman. Right? We say Arur Haman curses Haman. Okay. But now we're going to try to delve a little bit further. What is the connection between the Shulchan, the table in the Beis HaMikdash, and the holiday of Purim, the Yom Tov of Purim? Okay, so listen to this. You look in the Megillas Esther, look on page 1252. 1252. Okay? On page 1252, Achashverosh has marital issues, right? He has a problem with his wife. Right? He has a problem with his wife, so he needs some advice. So the Pasuk says, look on page 1252, Pasuk Yodalit. V'hakaro ve'lav. Who was close to Achashverosh? Karshna, Shesar, Admasa, Sarshish, Meres, Marsina, Memuchan. These are 7 guys who Achashverosh consulted with. You know, he had a problem with his wife. You know, it's very complicated. Marital issues are very complicated, right? People are married. No, you might need even 7 people to help you out. You know, one person might not be enough. You need to get 7 experts, right? Maybe between all of them they'll be able to straighten things out. But anyway, these are 7 people who Achashverosh was close to. And ultimately, who spoke up and advised Achashverosh what to do with Vashti? Memuchan. Okay? Who was Memuchan? Memuchan was Haman. And he tells Memuchan tells Achashverosh, look, this Vashti of yours, she's not sinning just against you. She's sinning against all the men. Because when those ladies find out that the queen doesn't listen to her husband, forget it. They're gonna want to go to work now, and then they're gonna want to vote, and who knows what's gonna happen. It might turn into the United States of America. So we gotta nip it in the bud. We gotta take care of this. Says the Gemara, don't make a mistake. Don't think that these 7 names are 7 advisors to Achashverosh. These 7 names are 7 arguments. 7 arguments given to the Melech. Who's the Melech? We have a tradition that God's name does not appear in the Megillah. And when it says Melech, it refers to God. When it says HaMelech Achashverosh, it refers to King Achashverosh. When it says Melech, Melech refers to who? Refers to Hashem. These are 7 arguments given by the angels to God to convince Hashem not to destroy the Jewish people, says the Gemara. Because, right, what's happening over here? The Megillah is telling us how Achashverosh made a big party celebrating the fact that the temple had not been rebuilt after 70 years. And because the Jewish people ate at this party, the Gemara says the Jewish people incurred God's wrath and they were going to be destroyed. So the angels come to Hashem and they say, God, don't destroy the Jewish people, and they offer 7 arguments not to destroy. Now look at the names. This is how the Gemara, look in Pasuk Yadalid. V'hakarov elav. You know who are close to God? Karshna. The Gemara says, the first Malach comes to Hashem and says, do the Goyim bring as a carbon, as a sacrifice, Karim b'nei Shana? Rams 1 year old? No. Karshna. Karim b'nei Shana. Rams 1 year old. Then the next Malach comes and says, do the Goyim offer Shesar, Shtei Torim, 2 turtle doves as a carbon? Then the Gemara says, Admasa, do the Goyim, did they build a Mizbeach made out of Adama, out of earth? Tarshish, do the Goyim have Bigdei Kahuna, that one of the stones is made out of Tarshish? Meres, do the Goyim mix blood with their sacrifices? And so on and so forth. Finally, what's the last argument? Memuchan, if you look in the Gemara Megillah, the final argument given was Klum heichinu shulchan lefanecha. Do the Goyim have a table in their temple where they put bread? Do they have a shulchan that they put lechem hapanim? Memuchan means Klum heichinu shulchan lefanecha. Do the Goyim set, like memuchan lehachin, do the Goyim set a table before you, God? So the final argument offered by the angels to Hashem, why not to destroy the Jewish people, was given by Mimuchan, which is what? Klum heichinu shulchan lefanecha. Of all these 7 arguments, which one persuaded Hashem not to wipe out the Jews? Memuchan. Because if you look in the next pasuk, it says, Memuchan, vayomer Memuchan lefnei hamelech. The argument that the king accepted was the argument of Memuchan. What was the argument? Do the Goyim bring bread on their table? In other words, what are we learning from here? That ultimately, what was the argument offered to God not to destroy the people? Not to destroy the Jewish people? The Jewish people have a shulchan in the temple that has lechem hapanim, that has the showbread. And that ultimately was the argument that killed Vashti, and that set into motion the whole salvation of Purim. So if you want to know, says the Chassam Sofer, where is there a remez in the Torah to Purim? The lechem hapanim, the shulchan. Because it's the argument of the lechem hapanim that convinced Hashem not to destroy Klal Yisrael. Because again, these 7 names, the Gemara says, are not 7 people. These are 7 arguments, right? On page 1252, Karshna, Shesar, Admasa, Sarshish, Meres, Marsna, Memuchan. These are not 7 people. These are 7 arguments. Which argument persuaded Hashem? The argument of Memuchan. What was Memuchan's argument? Klum hechinu shulchan lefanecha. Did any other nation ever set up a shulchan before you? So that ultimately is what brought the salvation of Purim. So if you want to know why Purim is alluded to in V'lakachta Soilas V'yafisa Isa, it's because that it was the mitzvah of the shulchan that convinced Hashem not to destroy the Jewish people. Okay. But we have to investigate, why is it that this argument was the argument that convinced Hashem not to destroy us? Why was this mitzvah, the shulchan, the lechem hapanim, why was this the argument that convinced the Ribono Shel Olam not to kill the Jewish people, not to have us annihilated? Why was this the most powerful argument? Okay, very interesting. The Gemara in Chulin, on Daf Kuf Lamed Tes, if you look at number 8, has a question. Haman min Torah minayin. Where is there a hint to Haman in the Torah? Where is there a hint to him, right? Everything is alluded to in the Torah. Sorry, you got the wrong sheet over there. You have the original.
I'm sorry.
No. Haman min Torah minayin. Where is there a hint to Haman? Right? Everything is in the Torah. Right? Says the Gemara, Hamin ha'etz. When God caught Adam and Chava, they ate from the Eitz Hadas, they ate from the tree of knowledge. What did Hashem say? Hamin ha'etz is from the tree that I told you not to eat from. You ate from there. Hamin ha'etz. Hey, mem, nun. What does that spell?
Haman.
Haman. Hamin ha'etz. Where is the hint to Haman? Did you eat from the tree? Okay, very, very cute, very nice. Oh, yay, we found Hey, mem, nun. It's like, what? It's like a crossword puzzle. You know, oh, you found the letters, now we have a hint to Haman. What's the meaning of that? Why is the hint to Haman found in God accusing Adam and his wife from eating from the tree of knowledge? Why is that where Haman is? Of all the places to be, maybe he would be, where in Amalek, when Hashem said destroy Amalek. No, where is Haman found in the Torah? When Hashem tells Adam and Chava, oh, you ate from that tree. Hamin ha'etz. Why is Haman found over there? Okay, we're going to try to investigate this. The Gemara tells us in Tainus that we have a lot of different pieces over here. We haven't really pieced them together yet. Okay, we're going to see. Look at number 9. Okay, we have a fascinating Gemara. The Gemara says in Tainus, Rav Nachman for Rav Yitzchak. Now we have Rav Nachman, we have Rav Yitzchak. Okay, Havayasi b'Sudasa. They were sitting at a meal. Maybe it was Purim. I don't know when it was. They were enjoying a meal together. Amar le Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak. Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, what do you think they're going to talk about? Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak. They're talking about, you're Nachman, right?
Right.
So here's Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak, they're talking, right? Leima mar milso. Say something. Meaning, say a nice Dvar Torah. We're having a meal, we're enjoying a meal. Let's not waste time. Tell me a nice Dvar Torah. Amar le Rav Yitzchak said, you want to hear a nice Dvar Torah? You're not allowed to talk in the middle of a meal. Amar le, he said, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, this is what my Rabbi taught me. Ein masichin b'Seuda, you're not allowed to talk while you're eating. Shema yakdim kaneh leveshet, because the windpipe may go before the food pipe. V'yaveh sakana, and you're putting yourself in peril. You're putting yourself in danger. What does this mean? Right? We have two pipes we have a windpipe, we have a food pipe. The windpipe is called a what? Trachea. In Hebrew it's called kaneh. The food pipe is called esophagus. In Hebrew, it's called a veshet. Vav, shin, tes. When you eat food, the food is supposed to go down the food pipe. Okay? The windpipe has a cover, something protecting it, that to make sure the food doesn't go down. What is it called? Epiglottis. But when you talk, the epiglottis lifts up. Now the windpipe is uncovered. Okay? If you're going to talk while you eat, the food's going to go down the windpipe and you're going to choke. And therefore, Rav Nachman says to Rabbi Yitzchak, why don't you tell me a nice Dvar Torah? Rabbi Yitzchak said, here's a nice Dvar Torah. You're not allowed to talk while you're eating. That's the Dvar Torah, because you're putting yourself in danger. Because the windpipe may come before the food pipe, and the food's going to go down the windpipe and you're going to choke. Rabbi said, what is the deeper meaning behind this Gemara? This is not a simple Gemara. Yeah, that's all it means. Two Amoram were talking, and one says, please tell me Dvar Torah, and the other one says, no, you're not allowed to talk while you're eating. It sounds like something, your grandmother would tell you. But, right, don't talk while you're eating. But certainly the Gemara could be giving us health advice. That's not a problem. There are many Gemaras that give you health advice. But what is the deeper meaning behind this Gemara? Okay. If you remember a few weeks ago, we said that everywhere in Tanakh, the Beis HaMikdash is symbolized by a certain part of the body. Which part of the body? The neck. Good. See, I count on Meir to remember the Shiur, right? The Beis HaMikdash is symbolized by the neck. Why? Why the neck? What's the function of the neck? The neck connects the head to the body. That's what a neck is. It connects the head to the body, right? The head sends down messages to the body. The heart pumps up blood to the head. The function of a neck is it connects the rosh, the head, to the guf, to the body. The Beis HaMikdash is the neck of the universe. How is the Beis HaMikdash the neck of the universe? It connects the head. Who's the head? God. God's our head. God says, when you uplift the Jewish people, you're not just uplifting the Jewish people, you're uplifting me, because I'm their head. That's what it means, Kisisa es rosh b'nei Yisrael. When you lift up the head of b'nei Yisrael, God says, I'm their head. You see, God and the Jewish people are one entity. God is the rosh, the Jewish people are the guf, the body. What's the neck? What connects us? The neck, the Beis HaMikdash. Okay? But let's get a little deeper. If the Beis HaMikdash is the neck, what is a neck? What's a neck? What is the primary connections between the head and the body? The two pipes, the food pipe and the windpipe. The windpipe, the air comes in, the food pipe brings in the food. These are the two connectors. Remember the neck? Beis HaMikdash is called the neck. The tzavar. The two main connectors of the neck are the windpipe and the food pipe, the koneh and the veshet. Okay? These are the two main connectors of the body. What connects us to Hashem? Okay, our windpipe and our food pipe. With our windpipe, what do? We talk. We learn Torah. We daven. We're mechazik our friends. We do chesed. We do kindness with our words. That's with what? With the windpipe, the koneh. But do we only serve God with Torah and tefillah? No. We're not like other religions. Christianity believes food is sin, right? Better not to eat. You're better off not eating. In Judaism, eating is a mitzvah. If you eat for the right intentions. If you don't eat, right? In Judaism, we don't just eat because it tastes good. We don't just eat for the pleasure of it. We eat to be able to serve Hashem. You eat breakfast to be able to go to work, to support your family. You eat lunch to be able to support your family. You eat supper to be able to learn, to be able to daven. You eat, in Judaism, you eat to serve Hashem. Okay? So you serve Hashem with the windpipe and the food pipe. You serve Hashem with the windpipe. Is one more important than the other? They're both necessary. They're both necessary. You need to learn, you need to daven, but you also need to eat l'shem shamayim. Eating is also, you're eating 3 times a day. You need to eat to serve Hashem. The koneh, the windpipe, is very important. The veshet, the food pipe, is very important. They stand side by side. You can't say, if you use your food pipe correctly, it's also dvar mitzvah, it's also mitzvah. You can't say one is more important than the other. Rav Nachman says to Rabbi Yitzchak during the meal, Rabbi Yitzchak, we're in the middle of eating, yeah? But why don't you tell me a dvar Torah? Torah, that's the only thing we focus on. Tell me Torah. Use your windpipe for a good thing. The food pipe? No, Rabbi Yitzchak says, you're not allowed to talk Torah if you're in the middle of eating. You know why? Shema yakdim kana leveshet. Because you're giving priority to the windpipe over the food pipe. You would be saying, if you would interrupt your eating to learn in the middle of a bite, you'd be saying that eating, that learning, is more vital to Judaism than learning. No, they're both needed. They're both needed. Shema yakdim kana leveshet. You may think the windpipe is more important than the food pipe. And you'll come to a danger in your service of Hashem. You'll make a mistake. You'll think Judaism is only about holiness, only about learning and davening. And eating is just it's a necessary evil. No, it's not a necessary evil. They're both vital parts of serving Hashem. You know what the Gemara means? Ein masichin Seuda. You know why you don't talk in the middle while you're eating? Because eating l'shem shamayim, eating for the sake of heaven, is such a big mitzvah that we don't interrupt the eating. Of course, you're supposed to learn at the table when you finish eating and between courses and so forth. But you know why you don't learn it while you're eating? Because you might be makdim, you might give priority to the windpipe over the food pipe. You may think serving God with your windpipe is more important than serving God with your food pipe. V'yavu yidei sakana, and you'll come to a danger. Okay, this is a drush on the Gemara. So what are we learning here? We're learning that the Beis HaMikdash, what was the function of the Beis HaMikdash? It was the neck of the universe. It connected Bnei Yisrael to God. The same way our windpipe and food pipe connect us to God, the Beis HaMikdash connected us to Hashem. Let's think a little bit.
What about before Beis HaMikdash and after Beis HaMikdash?
Oh, very good. Okay, we can come to that. If the Beis HaMikdash is the neck, what's the windpipe of the Beis HaMikdash? What's the food pipe of the Beis HaMikdash? Well, what do you do with the windpipe? You learn Torah. Which article in the Beis HaMikdash represented Torah? What's the main Torah that we do, that we talk about? What's the main Torah that we do? Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral law, right? The Gemara, that's the main Torah. The main Torah is oral law. What represents Torah Shabbal Peh? Menorah. The menorah, remember we learned that the menorah, the 7 branches represent the 7 parts of Chachma. It says if you see olive oil in a dream, you should anticipate becoming a Chacham. The menorah represents Torah. The menorah is the kaneh, it's the windpipe. Okay? What's the food pipe? The shulchan. The shulchan, that's where we have the bread, the Seuda, that main Seuda. The windpipe of the Beis HaMikdash is the menorah. The food pipe is the shulchan. What do we do when there's no Beis HaMikdash? Says the Sfas Emes, the Yom Tif of Chanukah corresponds to menorah. So the Yom Tif of Chanukah gives us the connection of the windpipe, Torah. But when there's no, what took the place of the shulchan? Purim. That's why, where is there a remez in the Torah to Purim? Lakachta soles, the mitzvah of the lechem hapanim, the shulchan. Because the shulchan, which is the food pipe of the Beis HaMikdash, right? The Beis HaMikdash is the neck. The menorah is the windpipe. The shulchan is the food pipe. When we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, right? When the Beis HaMikdash was standing, there's no Chanukah and Purim. These were given for the exile. Chanukah takes the place of the menorah. Purim takes the place of the shulchan. That's why, where is there a remez in the Torah to Purim? Lakachta soles, the mitzvah of the shulchan, the mitzvah of the lechem hapanim. Okay, now you need to fasten your seatbelts. Okay, now you really need to. This is going to incredible words. Comes along the Shlach HaKadosh. The Shlach HaKadosh says, what are our 2 connections to Hashem? The kaneh and the veshet. The windpipe and the food pipe. First of all, what are these 2 simanim like? Right? These are called simanim. Right? When you shecht an animal, you have to shecht both of these connections, both of these simanim. These two pipes, what letter of the aleph beis are they like? The vav. They're like, it's like a vav, right? These 2, the food pipe and the windpipe, these are 2 vavs. Okay, but they're in one body. They're 2 connections in one body, and they are represented by Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov was given the windpipe. Yaakov, the Jewish people focus on the kaneh, the windpipe. What does it say about Yaakov? Ha-koil, koil, Yaakov. Yaakov was given the koil, the sound, the voice. That was, Yaakov focuses on the kaneh. The Jewish people put their focus on the kaneh. We don't get engrossed in the veshet. We eat l'shem shamayim, we eat to give us energy, we eat to give us a boost, it gives us a lift. Sometimes you could even eat food, even if they're nuts, eating l'shem shamayim doesn't have to be, I only eat foods that are, give me energy to serve Hashem. Sometimes, a person wants to eat, you have a little soda, it puts you in a good mood, that's also eating l'shem shamayim. Okay? But Esav was given what? The veshet, the food pipe. He focuses on the veshet. Remember when Esav had the Bechorah, he's the firstborn. What does he do? He says, nah, haliteni na min ha'adam ha'adam hazeh. Give me the food. Vayivez Esav es ha'Bechorah. Esav disgraced the Bechorah. Says Targum Onkelos, Vayivez vishat. Feshet. Targum Onkelos says, Vishat Esav yas Bochrei. Esav despised the Bechar. The Targum on the word Vayivez is Vishat. He despised, Vav, Shin, Tes, Veshet. Food pipe. Esav's focused on the food pipe. He's in, just pour the food down. Right? Chazal say, he didn't even chew it. Pour it down like an animal. Right? Like, give me a funnel and just pour it down my throat. Okay. Says the Shlach Kadosh. Okay, these two simanim are like vavs. Kaneh, veshet. Look at the word veshet. How do you spell it? Vav, shin, tes. Vav, shin, tes. Tes. Vav, shin, tes. Okay? Vav, shin, tes. Someone who's foolish, how do you say foolish person? A shoteh. Someone who's foolish, he is not careful to keep the vav in the beginning of the word. Right? How do you spell veshet? Vav, shin, tes. Someone who's a shoteh, and he gets carried away with food. And some people, they don't eat to live, they live to eat. Their whole life, they're thinking about what they're going to eat. Right? They wake up in the morning, all that's on their mind is what's for breakfast. Then, they're thinking what's for lunch. Then they're thinking what's for supper. Now, unfortunately, they can't eat all day, so they try to occupy themselves in between meals. Even when they learn, they can't eat all day, so I might as well do something useful, so I'll learn. So they learn to eat. Everything they're doing is to eat. Their whole life is revolved around food. Some people, they're focused on what they need to do. They can't do it without eating, so they eat to live. Somebody who's is foolish, he's shoteh, he takes the vav of the veshet, vav shin tes, he puts it behind him, shatu, like shoteh, shin tes vav. Shin tes vav. He becomes a little foolish, he loses the priority, he takes the vav, he puts it behind him. Then when you get carried, says the Shlach Kadosh, listen to this, when a person really gets carried away with food, the vav, what happens by the way, the food pipe, when you're not eating, it's constricted. It's constricted. The windpipe always has to be open. The food pipe is constricted when you're not eating. When you start to eat, it expands. What happens when a vav expands? It gets a little bit wider, a little bit longer. It turns into a final nun. The vav turns into a final nun. Shin, tes, nun. Satan. When you get carried away with food, and you get too involved in food, and your life, the priorities of your life is food, food, food. What am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? Then the vav of veshet turns into the final nun, and the satan comes in. Where do we find that? When Adam and Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, before they ate from the Eitz Hadas, there was no satan. The satan was external. The nachash was an outer character. As soon as they sinned with food, and they gave too much focus on the veshet, that vav got a little elongated and a little bit fatter, and the veshet turned into satan.
So it's good to eat or it's not good to eat?
It's good to eat for the right reasons. In other words, if your focus in life is eating, in other words, if your focus in life, if your mindset is, you're always focused, what am I going to eat? And you eat because for eating's sake. You eat for the sake of eating. Right? What does that mean, eat for the sake of eating? You eat because it tastes so delicious. And even though it's clogging my arteries, right? It's clogging your arteries and hiring your cholesterol and hiring your blood pressure. It doesn't matter. I eat to eat. So that kind of food, that's called getting carried away with the veshet.
Yeah, but if somebody will put you a bowl of cereal, give you the full nutrition, and a plate with a steak, and you're choosing steak because it's delicious, you want to enjoy it. It's a wrong reason?
No, so that's what I said. But let's say you say, look, I'm a human being, right? It's very hard for me to be completely satisfied and happy and be able to carry out mitzvos in this world just eating the same Cheerios every day. And sometimes I need a little perk. But I'm not taking the perk for the perk. I'm taking the perk to allow me to carry out everything I have to do, the simcha. That's also eating for the right reason. In other words, two people could be eating the exact same food. One guy's eating it because he's eating it to eat. The other guy's eating it to eat, to give him a boost, because ultimately his kavana is that he wants to be able to serve Hashem properly. Okay? But it's a matter of focus. Are you focused on the food, or are you focused on the food for the benefit that you get from it? Okay. So if a person gets carried away with the veshet, the vav of the veshet gets bigger, gets longer, gets fatter, it goes behind him. It used to be in the front. The Vav used to be at the lead. It goes to the back. The Vav Shin Tes turns into Shin Tes Vav. And then the Vav turns very long. Where do we find that? Hamin ha'etz. Hamin ha'etz. God says, Adam and Chava, you want to know why you have a Yetzer Hara? It's because you got carried. I told you not to eat this thing. Why did you have to eat it? Because it tastes good? You knew it would taste really good? The Nachash convinced you how good it's going to taste? That's called getting carried away with the Veshet. That's what brings on the Satan. Our sages tell us, you ever hear this expression? Chacham einav b'rosho. The wise man has eyes in his head. It's a pasuk in Koheles. You ever hear that pasuk? Chacham einav b'rosho. The wise man has eyes in his head. Well, as opposed to what? He has eyes. Who doesn't have eyes? What? He has eyes on his feet. He has eyes on his toes. What do you mean, Chacham einav b'rosho? Listen to what the Shla says. Chacham einav b'rosh vav. The Chacham, he makes sure that b'rosh, that in the beginning, is the vav. That the vav is b'rosh, is at the beginning. A wise man makes sure, when it comes to his veshet, Chacham einav, his eyes are to make sure b'rosho. The vav is not in the end, doesn't fall in the end. It goes to the beginning, it stays in the beginning. If it stays in the beginning, if you use the veshet for the right reasons, you use the food pipe for the right reasons, then these are two equal ways of serving Hashem. But you get carried away with the vav. It goes to the back, you become a shoteh, and then it turns into a nun, it brings on the Satan. Brings on the Satan. What does Esav say? What does Esav say when he wants to, Vayivez Esav as a Bechorah, he despises the Bechorah? He says, Haliteni na min ha'adam hazeh. Pour for me from this red stuff. Says the Shla HaKadosh. Haliteni starts with the letter Hey. Na starts with the letter Nun. Min starts with the letter Mem. Spells out Haman. Haman. Haliteni na min. This is Haman in action. This is Haman's grandfather. The same way Esav realizes, I'm going to give away all of my spiritual benefits for what? For food. Satan. Esav is the Satan. Esav is the Yetzer Hara. That was what Haman did. Where do we see Haman doing this? The Medrash tells us, who advised Achashverosh to make a big Seuda and entice the Jewish people to come eat at the Seuda? Haman. That was Haman's suggestion. Why? Because Haman knew that just like when Adam and Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, what was the outcome? Comes the Satan, and what happened to Adam and Chava? Misa. Misa came to the world. Haman knew we just have to bring back that type of concept. Get the Jews to sin with eating. The Satan will come, and they'll be dead. They'll be dead. By the way, Rabbosai, Veshet, the Vav, turns into what letter? Nun Sofit. What's a Nun? 50. Yasu eitz gavoya chamishim ama. That's why Zer said, you want to hang Mordechai on an eitz. You're bringing back the sin of the Eitz Hadas. How tall is it? 50 amma. Why 50? Because we've been successful in transforming the Vav into a Nun. We've been saying,
well? I know the Torah so well.
Do they know the Torah? Yeah. They understood. Look, even you'd be surprised what Hitler knew about the Torah. It's a separate discussion, whether it actually means them or the spiritual forces that they represent. And
if you say 50 amos,
because 50 amos, who hangs someone on a tree? 50 amos. You know how tall 50 amos is? 100 feet in the air. Why would they do that? You can't even see who's up there. An average person is 3 amos tall. So you can hang someone 50 amos tall. If you light your Hanukkah menorah above 20 amos, you're not Yotzei the mitzvah because people can't see above 20 amos. So you're going to hang Mordechai 50 amos tall. Yasu eitz gavoa chamishim. We're bringing back the sin of the Eitz Hadas. That's why Yasu eitz gavoa chamishim amma. Because when you focus on the Veshet, the Vav turns into a Nun. There are 5 times in the Torah where Yaakov, how do you spell Yaakov? Any Yaakovs here? I'm Daniel Yaakov. Yaakov, Yud, Ayin, Kuf, Vez. 5 times in the Torah, the word Yaakov is spelled with an extra Vav. An extra Vav, right? 5 times. What's Vav? Gematria Vav? Vav is 6. 5 times 6 is Lamed. Why Lamed? Because what do we do with our Vav? With our Kana? Lamed. Limud Torah. Limud Torah. 5 times, there are 5 times in Torah, Yaakov is spelled with an extra Vav, the Shlah says, because this represents Lamed. 5 times 6 is 30, Lamed. Limud Torah. That's what we do with extra Vav. Tell you something interesting. Right? We said the windpipe, the Veshet has a Vav. The Kana, the trachea, right? In medical school, you learned there are rings around the trachea.
Sure.
How many rings?
I forgot how many.
6 rings. 6 rings around the trachea. Why? Because it's also a Vav. It's a Vav. The trachea is a Vav, but the 6 rings represent the fact that it's a Vav. Why Vav? Because what are you supposed to do with the windpipe? There are 6 things you have to do. Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. Zra'im, Moed, Nashim, Nezikin, Kachim, Taharos. That's what the windpipe is for, to be able to learn the Shas. Zra'im, Moed. Okay? So you have these 2 Vavs. Now listen to this. You have 2 Vavs. If you use your Veshet and your whole life is focused on the Veshet, the food pipe, you know what happens? And your Kana, your windpipe falls into disuse. You only use the windpipe, for speaking empty words, speaking Lashon Hara. So you don't need those 6 rings. You don't need that Vav. So what happens? The Veshet is a Vav. It takes the Vav of the Kana. You have 2 Vavs on top of each other. It becomes a long Nun. Satan becomes a long Nun. But what are you supposed to do? Chacham einav barosho. You have to make sure the Vav of the Veshet stays in the beginning, doesn't move to the end. And then in Judaism, they're both equal ways of serving Hashem. We learn with our windpipe, we serve Hashem with the food pipe. Haman min haTorah minayin means like this. Where did Haman see in the Torah that he could instigate and bring out a sin of the magnitude to really bring death to Klal Yisrael? Hamin ha'etz. He saw that when it comes to eating, improper eating, what brings the Satan, where do we see that from? The sin of the Eitz Hadas. That is why, where is Haman found in the Torah? Hamin ha'etz. That's why the hint to Haman is Hamin ha'etz. What did Haman and Achashverosh want to do? He wanted to sever our connection to God. He wanted to break the 2 Vavs, the Kana and the Veshet, our 2 connections to Hashem. They wanted to sever it. Therefore, the Megillah begins with the Vav. It ends with the Vav to show the Jewish people did tshuva. They used 1 Vav, the Kana, the windpipe, for what it's for. They used the Veshet, the food pipe, for what it's for. The 2 bookends of the Megillah are the letter Vav. But who loses his Vavs? The end of the Megillah, Vayasam HaMelech Achashverosh. Both Vavs were removed from Achashverosh. Achashverosh ended up losing his connection to anything. Achashverosh, the Jewish people, Vayehi b'mei Achashverosh, they had their Vav, Dover Shom L'Chozaro, we had both Vavs standing tall, but Achashverosh loses both of his Vavs. And that's why the Gemara tells us, what does the name Achashverosh mean? Anyone who remembered him said, Och l'rosho, woe to his head. Why woe to his head? Because without the 2 Vavs, without the connection between the head and the heart, the head can't function. Woe to Achashverosh's head. That symbolizes the fact that while Achashverosh tried to hang Mordechai and sever our connection to Rebbeinu Shalom, it was Achashverosh and Haman who ultimately had their downfall. Shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.